I've got 20 tips for you guys. Let's see if I can get them all in a video within 10 minutes. Let's do this. Well, hello my online ESL teacher friends, especially for those of you here at iTutorGroup. I'm running down 20 tips of all the ESL strategies that you need. iTutorGroup has asked me to collaborate on this video, so this is a special one just for you guys. Let's get started. Tip number 1, you have to greet your students warmly and briefly. So when you greet your students, hello, how are you? That is plenty. You don't have to go overboard. You can do something a little bit more fun. Bring in a puppet. Hello. And that's it, you guys. Don't do overkill. You don't want it to be more than a minute. Tip number 2, smile and be energetic, because when you're teaching online, when you have a face that is just kind of flat, you don't realize how cold that can look. So make sure you're always smiling and energetic. It goes a long, long way. Tip number 3, use props to engage your young learners. I have a whole set of props here. These are all my stuffed animals. I use them for colors, I use them for practicing speaking, and I use them for comparatives, biggest, smallest, etc. We're going to do tip number 4 and tip number 5 together. So when you're wanting a student to say something, make sure you point to your mouth. So if you want to do red, then cup your ear as soon as you're done pointing to your mouth, red, to show that you want them to say it and repeat after you. You don't even have to say the word repeat because this indicates everything. Tip number 6, you have to use TPR to make sure that your students understand. If you don't know what TPR is, there's 2 types that we use when we're teaching online. That's instructional TPR and educational. So instructional is like number 4 and 5. You're kind of pointing, showing them what you want to do to instruct them. Educational is more where the student engages with you. So for example, if you're teaching the phrase stand up, well, I have to sit down first. Stand up, sit down. You're actually doing an action related to a command that will help the student learn the vocabulary. This is a research-based strategy done by Dr. James Asher, so look that up if you've never heard of it, or if you don't use it and you're not sold on it, definitely look it up because it is proven to work and help people learn vocabulary for the long haul. Tip number 7, be encouraging and utilize the reward system. We do have 5 stars, so make sure you're using those stars, and you can use them with a 25-minute class every 5 minutes. It's perfect. Number 8, use simple language and sentences. I actually, with beginner students, I say 0-word instructions, just like I said with the color red. Don't even say repeat. Red. I say show, don't tell. Don't tell them what to do, show them what to do. And if it's intermediate or advanced, obviously you can give more instructions, but for our beginners, very limited, 0 to 1-word instructions. Tip number 9, you are the teacher, you are in control of your class, you induce the conversation. You get the students to practice speaking. So if they're struggling, what you want to do is put a sentence starter or a sentence frame up on the whiteboard, type it out. Like if you want them to say pandas are blank and blank, give 2 descriptions about pandas. Show them that sentence so they can fill in the blank. That will really help them say a sentence. And then if you want to induce conversation with people who are more advanced, then you want to ask them about specific topics. Give them a list to choose from. If they're interested in it, they're going to talk about it more, and let them know that they're part of the conversation. So when I say ask a question, you answer it, and then when you finish, you ask me a question and I answer it. And that's how we're going to practice speaking. Let them know what you expect, because otherwise we have students that are a little bit shy, a little bit timid, they don't want to talk too much, they feel like they're talking nonsense. But if they know that this is part of what you want from them, then it's much more clear. Tip number 10. Oh, this is a really important one, you guys. Corrections. And you want to be careful when you correct them. Don't correct the students while they're speaking. You want to wait until they finish reading, wait until they finish speaking, and then you correct them. Corrections are also really important because the students expect it. They want to be corrected. They don't get that. This is a huge perk for them to have someone that can correct them. Tip number 11, build equal speaking opportunities. If you have a group class, because you can have a group class at iTutorGroup up to 6 students in one class, you need to rotate your students. Student A, page 1, student B, page 2, and so on and so forth. Then they all know when they're speaking, when they're reading, there's no question about it, and everyone feels like they got a fair opportunity as well. Tip number 12, maximize student talking time. So I actually say for beginners, it's going to be about 50% because all they can do is repeat you. So it could even be up to you're speaking 60% with beginners because they don't have the language to actually say anything. Now with intermediate, you want to boost that up a bit. So you want intermediate students talking around 60% of the time, if not more. And then advanced students, you want to try to hit that 70% of student talking time. And you're about 30%. Tip number 13, arrange your session time effectively. This is gold, you guys. Even though this is tip number 13, you really need to utilize this as a pacing guide. Look at how many slides that you have in your session, and then you want to decide how many minutes you're going to spend on each time in order to finish the class on time, and then you want to keep looking at your timer. Am I where I'm supposed to be? If I finish this slide too early, then I know, okay, the next slide I'm going to have to spend some more time on. And how am I going to do that? I have to think of questions. I have to think of other ideas. I have a whole video just on pacing, and I'm going to link it in the description box. Tip number 14 is you want to break down your pronunciation, and you want to make sure that the student can say it effectively if they're struggling with pronunciation. And sometimes this requires you to dig into the word in a different way than you might expect, depending on where they're struggling. So if a student is struggling with, let's say, the word swanky. I had a student that was struggling with this, and she would say squaw instead of swo. So I wrote it out for her in separate chunks. And then I showed her, okay, can you say the word sway? And then she said it. She said the word sway. And then I said, okay, now say swain, swain. And then she said swain, swain. And then I said, now say swain, key. And I wrote the word key, like K-E-Y, because she already knew that word. So try to go with words that they can connect to, that they already know, and break it down in that way. It helps so much. Okay, tip number 15 is to moderate your speaking speed. You don't want to speak too fast, and you don't want to speak too slow, depending on the student's abilities. So if you have a younger student who's a beginner, you definitely want to slow down your speaking speed. And then if you have an advanced student, you want to speak like a native speaker. So be mindful of your speaking speed. Tip number 16 is to use visuals. You want to share pictures of your vocabulary that you're teaching. Try to help the students think of what the word looks like. It helps them remember it. Then they have not only the word, but they connect it to an image, and that really helps them to retain the vocabulary. Tip number 17 is you want to use that whiteboard as much as you can. You should have a lot written on your whiteboard. You don't want to overwhelm the student, but you want to have sufficient amount written on the whiteboard, especially to expand on information. Obviously, you're not speaking, you're not lecturing to them, but you want to provide those tips that you do give really concise, useful tips, and type those on the screen to guide the students and help them further their understanding of what you're teaching. Tip number 18 is when you have your group classes, you want your students to pair up together, work together, do some group activities, do some role playing, have them practice asking and answering questions together, a discussion, do some debating, anything like that where they can engage with each other in the group classes is wonderful. Tip number 19, you want to act out your vocabulary or situation to grab your students' attention, and acting things out can really help the students to understand what you're teaching them. And the last tip is tip number 20 is to end your session with a little 1-minute summary. So you can just say, what did you learn today? And have each student share what they learned. Or you can kind of guide them and give them some an overview of what they learned. So today we learned vocabulary, this, and this. Today we talked about this topic. Today we talked about this grammar point. And then you could ask the student, so what was your favorite part of the class? Do something along those lines and try to do it in a minute's time. This is an amazing, amazing set of tips from iTutorGroup, and I am just delivering the information for them. I hope you guys found this useful. Let me know in the comments what you like the best, and also share your tips with other teachers down in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this video, and subscribe to my channel. Like the video, subscribe to my channel, and I will be back with more every Monday at 6 o'clock the latest. Alright, I'll see you guys. Bye-bye!